morning, everyone. We'll give it a minute or two as people are joining. It is 10 o'clock sharp. Thanks for being here, and we'll wait about 30 seconds to a minute. All right, it's 10:01. We'll go ahead and get started. My name is Kelly. I'm the new Community Engagement Manager here in the Broadband Office. Excited to have everyone here today. We've got about 6 attendees who are in the webinar. Thanks for being here and making time. We have Crystal and Jamie and Perla with us, and we are going to dive in with Crystal today, who's going to start with a presentation, and then we'll go through some common questions that we've been receiving in our inbox, and then we'll have Q&A at the end. If you do have questions, you can put them either into the chat or into the Q&A, and we will get to those toward the end with Crystal's Q&A portion. So we'll go ahead and turn it over to Crystal.
Okay, thank you. So today I'm going to cover basically what I covered last time, which is how to navigate the Broadband Navigator for the challenge process. So similar to last time, I started at the ACA broadband page. So if you go to azcommerce.com/broadband, it'll take you to our broadband page. Then, oh yes, sorry. 1 second, I guess I'm sharing the wrong screen.
I'll put those links in the chat too.
Here we go. Can you see my new screen? Okay. So as I was saying, if you go to azcommerce.com/broadband, it'll take you to the AZ or Arizona Commerce Authority's broadband page. From here, I'm going to go to BEAD and then the challenge process. This is where everything related to the challenge process sits. There's a lot of information in here. This link right here will take you to the Broadband Navigator, which is the challenge process portal. So if I click that, it takes you to az.broadbandnavigator.com. So this is basically the challenge portal. Right now, we're looking at a map of Arizona that shows the status of coverage, receiving greater than or equal to 100 megabytes per second upload and 20 megabytes per second download. Or excuse me, I have that backwards. So the top tabs here, you can filter by type of coverage. So this is the default 100 by 20. There's also 25 by 3. And then there's also the number of providers. There's different boundaries. Right now, the default is at the county boundary, but you can change the boundaries here. So there's census block groups, census blocks, tracts, school boundaries, and tribal boundaries. So I can also add the funding boundaries. So to do that, there's this little toggle right here. When I toggle it on, it shows all the different types of funding, broadband funding in Arizona, and they're all color coordinated. So there's EA-CAM in pink, TBCP in purple, RDOF in green. Currently, we do know that there is some issue with the TBCP funding. We've raised that with NTIA, and we're hoping to get better data. But we're assuming that the TBCP funding is likely incorrect outside of tribal boundaries. So you're welcome to formally challenge that, but just know that that is something that we're addressing, and we plan to have deduplicated even post-challenge process. All right, so you can toggle the funding boundaries on and off. If you're curious about where to find more information on these different types of funding, you can go to the help section. In here, there's a link to funding layer. And this is where all of the information for each of those funding types sits. So I could go to RDOF and find out more about RDOF from here. All right, so we're just going to turn this back off. There's also, if you click on any boundary here, you'll see that the broadband and digital indicator table changes. This is also aggregated at each boundary level. So for example, when I select Fort Apache, we see the total number of BSLs here, and then we can see what type of coverage is there. So largely unserved. You can also go through each of these different indicators too. This data is based on American Community Survey data. So if you want to know more about that, you can go to About, Data Information, and it tells you exactly what files were downloaded for this. And all of those files are freely available at the American Community Survey Data's website, basically the US Census Bureau. Let's see. So I've kind of showed you what all of this is doing at the high level, but if I go and zoom in, I can see things at the BSL level, broadband serviceable location. So these are essentially at the household level. If I click on a BSL, we see the availability data here to the left. For this household right here at this address, we see that the CostQuest has identified it as being a residential address, and that the provider here is Frontier. They provide DSL at 100 by 1. We also see down here that the funding data is available. So this location will likely receive RDOF. The awardee for that is Connexon and TVCP. The provider right here is unknown though. Okay, I can also search for an address. So to do so, I'll come over here to the search bar and I'll just search for Commerce Authority address. And it'll take me to the address. We have had some people let us know that there's some issues with the search bar. It's very uncommon that you won't be able to search for your address. But if that's the case, we recommend that you zoom in using the map to navigate to your address and then select the address. If you don't see your address on the map, it could be because it's not an address that would get or subscribe to mass broadband. That is basically because of the CostQuest. We don't have any control over what they say would or would not subscribe to broadband. But if you have an issue with that, go ahead and reach out to our office and we'll try to address it. Okay, so notice I can do all of this without being a registered user. You do not have to be a registered user to take a speed test or report a service issue, meaning anybody can take a speed test and report a service issue. You do not have to be a challenger, or you don't have to sign in for an account. To do that, you just go to take a speed test, select any of these if they apply to you. So if you're on a VPN, if you're using your mobile service, or if you're using a wireless network, you want to select one of these. If you're currently using your network for video streaming or gaming, you'll select this if it's true. If not, you can go ahead and press go. And it'll run a speed test. It'll take a second to collect all the data, but just know that you do not have to record any of this information yourself. Our portal automatically collects this for you. And so if it finds that your speeds are not sufficient, it'll automatically trigger a speed test. And it'll send your data basically to the back end. So notice it also records latency. Latency is basically the ping. So for this demonstration, we're going to show what it's like when your speeds do not meet the threshold. So if they do not meet the threshold, it's going to ask you for more information. So just go to Start, fill out all of this information. It's important that you use an email that you check regularly because the system will send an automatic email to remind you to take 2 more speed tests. So you want to identify which provider you're currently using and what type of property it is. You also want to let us know what speed you currently subscribe to. Here, you want to certify that all of this information is correct and check the box here. Afterwards, you'll submit your speed test. So the system automatically reminds you to take those consecutive speed tests. It's really important that for a valid speed test challenge that you take 3 total speed tests. So you can also report a service issue. Anybody can report a service issue. You do not have to be a registered user to do so, and you do not have to be a permissible challenger. To do that, you'll go to report a service issue, and then you'll select whichever service issue applies to you. For example, if someone in the community finds their address and they see that a provider has reported providing service there, but they happen to know that that provider would not provide service to them, that would be an availability challenge. So they're going to want to make sure all of this information is filled out. So let's just say I'm a resident and I've tried to subscribe to Cox, but they denied the request for service. I'll certify all of this information is correct. And then I'm going to want to upload evidence to support my claim. So that could be a screenshot, that could be a phone transcript, it could be a number of things. But it's really important that you attach the evidence here because that'll help us basically either accept or reject your claim. So that's how anybody in the community can take a speed test or report a service issue. You don't have to be a registered user to do so. But if you are interested in becoming a permissible challenger, you're going to want to request an account. So to do that, you'll go to sign in, request a new account. You'll fill out all of this information here. And then you're going to let us know what type of category you fall under. So the types of permissible challengers are local and tribal government, nonprofit organizations, or broadband service providers. So if you see your organization here, go ahead and select that. If you don't see your organization listed here, you can go to Other and type in your organization here. And then let us know what the link to your web page is. It's really important when you're signing up that you use the email address associated with your organization. So that would be your government email or the domain that your organization uses. That just helps our office approve your requests faster. And then you'll request an account. So once you request an account, our office will accept the request, and then you'll get another email from the Broadband Navigator to finish setting up your account. It'll ask you to create a password. Once you've done that and logged in, you can actually begin challenging. Let's see. So to challenge, you're going to want to go to the BSL level. So you can either search for your address or you can zoom into the map. We've received a lot of questions about folks who do not currently have broadband. How are they supposed to participate? Well, they don't need to participate in the challenge process because they're already eligible for BEAD. So these locations here that are unserved and underserved are already eligible for BEAD funding. And so they do not have to challenge anything on this map. Let's see. Challenges are mostly for locations. For example, availability challenges are for locations where the provider has said that they provide service here, but that's not actually the case. So to create that challenge, I'm going to select on the BSL. Notice there's no address here. That's because NTIA you don't have to have an address to be able to challenge. You just need a latitude, longitude, and there needs to be a structure here that could potentially subscribe to broadband. So once I click the BSL that I'm interested in, I'll go to submit a challenge. So this is where all the other types of challenges sit. So there's availability challenges, data cap challenges, speed, latency, technology. There's a number of different challenges. If you don't know which one applies to you, I strongly suggest you use our volume 1. So volume 1 is part of the initial proposal that explains what the challenge process is. So to find it, you'll go to our broadband page, BEAD challenge process, and then look for the approved volume 1. So that sits right here under challenge files. Once you click it, it will download a Word document. So this is the initial proposal. In here it has detailed information about how we're conducting the challenge process, and it has detailed information about types of challenges. So here, the table about different types of evidence is here. So there's availability challenges. It tells you what an availability challenge is and what types of examples would constitute evidence for that. Just know that the types of evidence are not limited to what's in this table. You can submit a number of different types of evidence. Our office plans on creating another document that has more examples. But these are just examples. So for example, if I want to submit an availability challenge, meaning the broadband provider has said that they offer service here, but I know that they do not, I can submit a screenshot of the provider's website claiming that they do not provide service at my address. Similarly, I'm going to want to certify all of this is correct and go to next and upload the evidence. You need to upload evidence to support your challenge. Our office will eventually review the evidence and basically accept or reject challenges. So all of that information can be found here. Okay, so I've showed you how to reference volume 1 for challenges, and I've basically showed you how to submit a challenge. There's also what we call a bulk challenge, but these are limited to specific types of challenges. So to submit a bulk challenge, I'm going to use this icon here. It's a pencil icon. And what I'm going to do is create a polygon around the households that I'm interested in. So bulk challenge is really only for enforceable commitments or planned services challenges. An enforceable commitment is basically that an area that should basically receive broadband based on some type of federal or state obligation is not on the map or should be taken off the map. So similarly, when I'm creating a bulk challenge, I want to make sure that all of this information is correct. And then submit my evidence. like I said, this is mostly applicable for internet service providers or actually tribes. So I know if a tribe knows that let's say there's a service provider within a tribe, but you know that that service provider never got basically approval from the tribe, that would be a reverse enforceable commitment challenge. And you could send us a letter from your tribe stating that this provider was never given permission to provide service within my tribe. Information on that can be found on volume 1, but we're also going to be publishing an SOP that has more information on that. Okay, so lastly, I'm going to cover the different types of dashboards. So there's a couple of different types of dashboards in the portal. There's a summary dashboard here that has the status of all challenges in the state. It's got the challenge process start date. Notice these two are incorrect. There's a glitch in the system, but basically rebuttal ends 15 days after notification of a challenge, and the challenge process ends on May 14th. So just note that these two boxes right here are incorrect at the moment. In total, we have about 474 challenges within the entire state of Arizona. Once our office starts accepting these challenges, you'll see the number of challenges waiting in a rebuttal and the number of completed challenges. So again, this is the status of all challenges within the state of Arizona. There's also an open rebuttal status. So an open rebuttal is a challenge made by usually a service provider where a community or nonprofit can rebuttal. So open rebuttals are open to any challenger. Our office asks that you only rebuttal challenges that are applicable to your region. Once we start seeing those types of challenges, our office is going to reach out to the appropriate authorities to basically complete those rebuttals. And lastly, there's the challenge dashboard. So the challenge dashboard shows the status of challenges made by your organization. So if your region, let's say you are with a county or a tribe, and the tribe has multiple users under their account, anybody from the tribe that has registered with the tribe can go to this challenge dashboard and see the status of those challenges made. And then lastly, the status of challenges are going to be made public. However, any evidence associated with the challenge is still going to remain private. So what that means is, at the BSL level, if a challenge is made for this multi-dwelling unit, you'll see the status right here, that a challenge has been made. You'll also see when it's been rebuttaled and when it's been complete. So that information will be shown here when you click on the BSL in this BSL information table. Okay, well, that's all I intended on showing everyone today. I think we can open it up for questions.
We don't have any in the chat or the Q&A, so folks can either put it in the Q&A, the chat, you can raise your hand. We can even unmute if you'd like to ask. But I think, Crystal, at this point, we don't have any coming in, so if you want to move forward in what you've got.
Sure. Let's see. Some interesting things that we found with the data. So again, our office does not have any control about what CostQuest or the FCC has designated as a BSL or what type of location it is. So all of this information comes from the FCC. So if you're interested in what the FCC is showing, I can go to the FCC National Broadband Map. That's broadbandmap.fcc.gov. It'll take me to this map. Basically, our Arizona Broadband Navigator pulls data directly from this website. So CostQuest is basically the entity that has identified or basically like classified what type of addresses these are. Our office has no control over it. If you find that a location is missing from our map, it's completely missing, we're not able to add those to the map. However, you can make a challenge on the FCC map saying that my address is missing from here. And to do that, you'll just click anywhere on the map and challenge. Also, we've gotten a lot of questions from folks saying that they don't see their service provider in our map. So for example, if I know that Starlink provides service to these 3 homes and I don't see that their technology is listed here, that's because satellite is not a reliable technology according to NTIA. So reliable technology are basically DSL, cable, fiber, or excuse me, copper, fiber, also licensed fixed wireless and licensed by rule fixed wireless. So if a provider uses a technology other than what the NTIA has deemed reliable, you won't see it in our map. That's because there's no point to challenge it because it's not a reliable technology, meaning it would be eligible for BEAD. So for example, if I go to this map and I see SpaceX provides service here, satellite is not a reliable form of technology. So technically, based on what I'm seeing here, this household is eligible for BEAD funding because this is the only reliable technology provided here and it does not meet the minimum speed requirements. So if you're interested, you know, this location on this map says it's served, but you actually have to filter it first. So you're going to want to make sure that you select all reliable technologies. Those are basically all wired, DSL, copper, fiber, and licensed fixed wireless and licensed by rule fixed wireless. So that's going to be this one right here. And speeds that are greater than or equal to 100 by 20. Once I do that, I'll see that the status of these changed. So now these are classified as unserved. And that's because the only reliable technology here does not meet the speed requirements. So again, our map is basically pulling the same data from the FCC map. If you notice that there's an issue with the data listed on ours, it's likely because the FCC does not have the correct info or that doesn't have the right data for you. So for example, if I know for a fact that this address is actually a business address, I could challenge the FCC map to have that changed. But there's no way to do that for us. However, let's say I know that the service provider here only offers business services when this is actually a mixed address, meaning it's a business and it's a residential home. That would be basically evidence for a challenge. Real quickly, I'm going to cover CAIs. So CAI is a community anchor organization. Our volume 1 also defines what a CAI is. So to find that, I'll go to this part, requirement 6 of our initial proposal. So NTIA has already defined what a community anchor institution is. It's basically any of these types of organizations that support or facilitate greater use of broadband service to vulnerable populations, which include but are not limited to low-income individuals, unemployed individuals, children, incarcerated, and aging individuals. So these category types are typically what meet that definition. We've also expanded it to be formerly incarcerated individuals. So if you believe that there's basically a CAI in your community that's not on our map, that could be a CAI challenge. So if you plan on submitting CAI challenges, first, I would start by navigating to our page. In here, under the challenge process resources, there's a CAI template. This template is the same template that NTIA uses when they asked our office to collect CAIs. So in here are a number of fields where we need information. So you can start collecting this information for the CAI to help your challenge. The most important fields in here are going to be the street address. If there is no street address, you could just use latitude and longitude. It does not have to have an address. If it falls under the categories that we've described in volume 1, meaning it's a school, library, health clinic, any one of these categories right here, all you have to do is put that CAI type here. If it doesn't formally fall under one of those categories, it could still be eligible as a CAI. So right here is where you're going to explain how the location meets the definition of a CAI. And again, the definition of a CAI is right here. Facilitates greater use of broadband service by vulnerable populations. We would also ask that you include what type of broadband that CAI has currently. So if that CAI currently does not have 1 gig symmetrical service, meaning 1,000 by 1,000 megabytes per second upload and download speeds, it is eligible for BEAD funding. So if it does not have that service, you'll just say not served here. So once you've filled out this information, this will greatly help basically your challenge for the CAI, and we can add the CAI to our list of CAIs. Just note the importance of BEAD funding first goes to unserved households, then underserved households, and lastly, with whatever remaining funding, we can address CAIs.
No questions yet? Feel free to raise your hand, put something in the chat or the Q&A anytime.
Perfect. So there's also some additional challenge process materials here. Under challenge process information and materials on our broadband website, there are a couple of what we call one-pagers. So here's a one-pager of why the challenge process is important. It's also got some important timelines here. who are eligible to become challengers, why people should participate, and the types of challenges here. It also has a link to our website and the timeline. So again, this is a very important date. This is the last date to submit a challenge, May 14th. There's also a one-pager on area and MDU challenges. So these are a little more complex. Basically, a multi-dwelling unit challenge is where a location that is an MDU, you can flip the status of it if more units participate. So if at least 3 units in a multi-dwelling unit or 10% of the units create a challenge, the challenge is applicable to the entire structure itself. So this is pretty relevant for large MDUs. An area challenge is where 6 or more BSL's broadband serviceable locations challenge a particular provider and technology within a census block group. So a census block group is a pretty large boundary. If I'm interested in seeing what that looks like, I can go to this drop down and go to census block group. Then I can see the boundary right here of a census block group. So if 6 households, or if I plan on challenging 6 of these BSLs for one of these providers, let's pick on Triad just for an example. If we all challenge Triad within the census block group, that will trigger an area challenge for this entire census block group. So every BSL that subscribes to that provider would then, the evidence from these 6 challenges would be applicable to everybody, meaning you don't have to go through all of the hard work of gathering evidence for this entire block group, just 6 households or 6 BSLs. So that is what an area challenge is. It's a little more complex, but it takes the work off of a challenger by limiting the evidence to only 6 BSLs. And again, the provider also has 15 days to rebuttal, meaning they don't know who challenged, they don't know what evidence was used to challenge, but the provider is then responsible for submitting a sample of randomly 10% of these BSLs and basically providing evidence that they do provide service there. But again, it's random for the provider. It puts the responsibility on the provider to basically provide evidence that they actually do provide service. So that's what an area challenge is. It's a little more complicated. If you have questions about what an area challenge is, feel free to reach out to our office. Let's see, information on that is found on our website. At the very bottom of this, you can request office hours. And we'd be happy to talk with you for 30 minutes on the challenge process or how to do an area challenge.
I'll get that office hour link in the chat as well.
Okay. Lastly, there's a couple of other one-pagers in here. There's how to conduct a speed test or latency test with lots of examples. So we've had several people, basically you can download this, print it, use it yourself and distribute it to the community if that's what you're interested in doing. Just to reiterate though, it's not really necessary to take a speed test challenge for a location that is already not served, such as these. So these are already unserved and underserved and eligible for BEAD. So they really don't need a challenge, and you don't need people to take a speed test to prove that they don't have the speeds, because we already know that their speeds are way below the threshold. A speed test challenge is more applicable to areas where a provider has said they provide a service that meets the threshold when it actually does not. So those are going to be for the served locations. However, a challenge, a more like other forms of challenges might be applicable to your area. For example, if you happen to know that an RDOF provider does not actually intend to provide service here, you can submit a challenge for that. And again, information on that can be found on our Volume 1. We also have that table from Volume 1 right here too. It's called Challenge Type Evidence Examples and Permissible Rebuttals. So that table can be found here too. This is the exact same table that's on our Volume 1, but just in an easier format. Our office also plans on expanding on this. Basically, we're going to post more examples, because we've had a couple of folks confused that the examples listed in here are the only ones that can be used for a challenge, and that's not true. These are just a few examples. So we'll be releasing more documentation on what other types of examples can be submitted. If you have any technical questions about the navigator itself, there's the help page right here. There's frequently asked questions. If you don't see your address on the map, if the speeds or technologies aren't displayed there, what some of this information means. Then there's also a technical user guide here. It's called the Broadband Navigator User Guide. This more so has information on how to complete steps within the portal. For example, how to submit a bulk challenge, and steps on how to submit a challenge. However, if you need more assistance, you can always reach out to our office. Our email is broadband@azcommerce.com.
Yes, I just plugged it in the chat too.
Okay, thank you. Or you can reach out to anybody on the team. We'd be happy to assist. But there's also the office hours available, where we have a 30-minute chat one-on-one, and we can walk you through anything that you need more assistance with. And again, that information is found at the bottom of the page here. Challenge process office hours. So I think that's it. Lastly, I will let everyone know there's a file on our website. So the data that was used to populate the funding data here, we've made freely available. This was a data set that was deduplicated by NTIA. It's a very, very large file. It's about 1.2 gigs. It's a large Excel spreadsheet. But if you have, if you know someone that knows GIS, or if you're able to do that type of analysis yourself, that file is freely available here. It has all of the availability data for Arizona, and it also has federal funding data here too. And more information on that data set is found here. There's the deduplication data dictionary that tells you what each field means. There's also a couple of other data sets here. Here's a list of unserved and underserved addresses in Arizona by location ID. So location ID is basically the BSL ID because of our contract with CostQuest, we're not able to share those actual addresses. But if you're interested in doing that analysis yourself, you're more than welcome to. You can apply to a Tier D or Tier E CostQuest license and get access to all of that address and latitude, longitude information. There's also our list of community anchor institutions here. This is a really large Excel spreadsheet that has basically every CAI that's listed in our map is also available in the Excel spreadsheet. So here's that spreadsheet. Notice we've also have broadband availability information here for a CAI.
Crystal, I don't think we're seeing what you see.
Oh, again, okay. Okay, now.
There we go. Yes, thank you.
All right. So this is the CAI spreadsheet found on our webpage. This is every community anchor institution in Arizona. If you believe that yours is missing, or you know several that are missing from our list, that would be that could be a permissible challenge, and you'll just want to collect the information I was talking about here. So the name, if you know what type of CAI it is. So don't worry if you don't know what these letters mean. These are just like classifications. So H would be health or hospital. All we really need is longitude and latitude. If it has a street address, that's also helpful. If it's not a formal CAI type, so like a hospital, educational, government, you can basically explain how your CAI meets our definition of what a CAI is, and that's broadband services to vulnerable populations. And let us know if they currently do not have a gig or if they do have 1 gig symmetrical service. Okay.
All right, we really haven't had any questions. I've tried to stay updated with making sure links and emails are in there. There is time here. We've got 12 minutes left. If there are any questions, you can raise your hand, post it in the chat or in the Q&A. You also can email us at the broadband email. That's an inbox that is shared by the office and monitored hourly during business hours. So we are pretty quick to respond to that as well. And I definitely highly suggest the office hours as well. It's a great time to have one-on-one time with Crystal and Jamie and the experts in what's happening, so you can get your questions answered, get some really good information in those as well. But if there are no questions, I don't need to delay ending the meeting. So I'll give you a few more seconds. If you've got questions, go ahead and plug those in now. Otherwise, feel free to start dropping off and have 11 minutes back in your day. Thanks for joining us. Thank you to Crystal for sharing. And again, reach out to us, book office hours, send us an email, and we're happy to connect. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.